Welcome back. Renewables, going green, EVs, they're the buzzwords, aren't they? And we're going to be touching base now with Naveen Munjal of Hero Electric to talk about this growing market, particularly the two-wheeler market. Thanks so much for joining us on the market. This is Nayantara. My first question to you is that, you're hearing so much about EVs, and like they say, market khul raha hai. When you have Ola's Bhavish Agarwal saying he has sold one bike every 4 seconds with the launch, it certainly indicates something. What have you seen at Hero Electric? Is the market indeed opening up? Electric vehicles for two-wheelers are clearly the winner. The four-wheelers are lagging behind.
Good morning, Nantara. Thank you for having me on the show. Yes, indeed, the market is exploding. I mean, what we are finding is that the government policies are to a great deal in place. They've been enhanced. The government has taken cognizance of the fact that, earlier they had a policy and there's been correction done on that, which is resulting in a very, very positive mood in the market completely. Now, what's happening is that there is a tremendous amount of demand which is coming in. And so much so that, at this point, we are not able to cope with that kind of demand. So we are lagging behind in terms of supplies, etc. That said, we are building up our capacities now. So by early next year, we would have about 5x the capacity that we currently have. And then we're going to be adding on for capacities from there on. Now, what is basically triggering this is one, of course, there is the government policies which are conducive for the sector now. It's not just the center, but there are numerous state policies also which are helping push this sector forward. The second is that there is growing awareness amongst the people. So people are understanding the benefits of electric vehicles far better than what they were earlier, and they're willing to try it out far more. Of course, there is also the factor of the TCO, the total cost of ownership. So when you look at a vehicle over a period of time, the initial purchase price of electric was higher than IC engine vehicles, but the running cost was far lower, multiple times lower. So what's happening now is with the petrol prices being where they are, the gap between the two has widened substantially. So electric vehicles have become cheaper to run, and IC engine vehicles have become far more expensive to run. That gap has gone up hugely. So there are numerous such factors which are resulting in customers now opting for electric mobility far more than what they were earlier. And I'm glad to see that. I'm glad to see competition coming in because that only grows the market. The whole pie becomes much larger and very, very interesting and exciting times indeed.
So my next question to you then, Naveen, is have you done any analysis of what this price gap right now is between the EVs and the ICE vehicles? What kind of a delta are we talking about? And is this also why you're seeing large orders from corporates? And is that what is pushing sales up? You have a Zomato, Swiggy, Flipkart, Amazon, I could go on and on, who have set deadlines for themselves as far as having EV fleets go. Is that where all of the orders are coming from?
No, that's not the only place where the orders are coming from. So, Nantara, what's happening basically is let me explain the economics to you first. So, you asking, so there are subsidies in place, which is both, like I said, at central and at the state levels. So let's look at a city speed category, which we have, which is defined as a city speed, about 45 to 55 odd kilometers speed vehicles will give you a range of anything from 80 to 210 kilometers. These vehicles are now at about 65,000 rupees in most parts of the country, and cheaper in states where they have additional subsidies like Delhi, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Rajasthan, etc. So these vehicles, most of the parts of the country, they're cheaper than your IC engine commuter vehicles. That's one part of it. Now, in states where you have additional subsidies on top, they become even further cheaper because those states are subsidizing you. So there are numerous state policies which are in place, which are more to manufacturing led. So if you come and manufacture in that state, they will support you. But a number of states have gone the other way as well to say, while we support you from a manufacturing policy standpoint, we will also support you in creating demand, which is a very, very important factor. So these two things have resulted in these vehicles becoming cheaper. Now, the market, where the demand is coming from is B2B is, of course, a very, very important sector, and that B2B spans a very wide spectrum. So there is, of course, the e-commerce goods, then you've got the food deliveries, and then you've got the smaller food deliveries, and then you've got shared mobility and thereon and thereof. So it's a very, very large sector. So far, this sector we were nurturing it for the past many, many years. So we have separate teams which work only on B2B. Now this sector is really playing an important role, but that's not where the demand is. All of the demand is coming from. Of course, that takes longer to fructify. The demand actually is coming more from the consumer standpoint. So what has happened is till last year, the market was, as we defined, was a low-speed market, below 25 kilometers an hour. And these vehicles cost about 55, 60, 50,000 rupees or thereabouts, highly price sensitive. Now what has happened is because of the subsidies coming into play and because of the support that we are getting, the city speed category, as I was saying, 45 to 55 kilometer speed vehicles, these vehicles have become even cheaper than the low speed vehicles. Thereby, the demand is shifting from a low speed category to the city speed category. Now, the minute you're shifting to a city speed category, you're now in the realm of the commuter segment, which is a very, very large segment of the automobile industry, of the two-wheelers. These are vehicles which cost about 75 to 80,000 rupee price point, and people effectively use them to commute. So they're very price sensitive, not just in buying them on in the initial purchase price, but also the running cost. And so in the initial purchase price, our city speed category, which may not be the same performance, but the torque is very, very good. So the issue is when a customer asks for speed, in a lot of cases, effectively, they're asking for torque. They're not asking for speed. So they're asking, that I want to be off the traffic signal in a hurry. I don't want to be left behind. I want to be able to get on the traffic on a flyover without a problem, without really losing too much speed. And that is where the city speed category fits in. So it fits in brilliantly there. In terms of running, it's multiple times cheaper than an IC engine vehicle. Just to give you the economics, if a person's using a vehicle for 50 kilometers a day, with the IC engine, he's looking at 1 liter of fuel, which is about 100 rupees per day. With the electric vehicle of ours, which is a city speed category, you're looking at 1.5 units of power, which is about 12 rupees. Multiply that over a span of 3 years, 1,000 days, you're looking at 1 lakh rupees versus 12,000. So as it is, your product is cheaper to start with. On top of that, you've got 88,000 approximately saving in terms of the TCO, the running cost of the vehicles. Now that is those economics the customers have begun to understand and enjoy. So they are taking benefit of it. So it's both the consumer segment, which is working very, very well. B2B always understood the concept of TCO very well. It's now the consumers also understanding it. That's where the market is shifting.
Sure. Mr. Munjal, whenever we speak with any of the market participants, they're still pretty apprehensive of investing into the EV theme. And they still believe that there are a lot of challenges, hurdles, work in progress, if I can call it that, aspects when it comes to the entire EV story. To your mind, what are the hurdles that the industry per se, not you at Hero Electric, but the industry is currently facing? Are there still question marks on, the terms of refinancing, the resale value, charging infrastructure, etc., that you've been hearing?
So, Netra, I can tell you from I'm going to tell you from an industry perspective. So there are certain challenges, of course, which are there, but those are not unbridgeable challenges. Now, let me put it in this thing. So when you talk about electric mobility, you've got to actually put all of these categories, you've got to put different forms of vehicles in a different category. Two-wheelers, three-wheelers, cars, public transport, commercial vehicles. All of them will take off at a different time, and all of them have different needs and requirements in terms of the infrastructure, the charging infrastructure, et cetera, thereof. And the pricing, of course, differential between IC and electric. Now, two-wheelers is the low-hanging fruit because the gap between the purchase price has reduced substantially. Now, the challenges which exist in this sector, but again, like I said, these are highly bridgeable. One is the charging infrastructure. It's an anxiety of charging infrastructure. How we are bridging that is by actually installing our own charging infrastructure. We've installed about 1,650 charging stations for customers in dense markets where you would generally go and park your vehicle. So you're not going out of your way to park your vehicle. That's one factor where we are installing it. The second, what we've done is, in our case, we made our batteries portable. So even if you're in a city or in a block of apartments where you don't have charging infrastructure on the road or in your building, or you're parking a vehicle on the road, you can effectively take the battery up to your apartment, charge it there, plug it back into the vehicle, and off you go. And we can offer you a range of anything from 80 kilometers upwards to 210 kilometers in the same vehicle using modules of that same battery. So that is a great disadvantage. Financing has been a challenge to start with, because as I said, till last year, majority of the vehicles were unregistered. They were the low-speed category vehicles, so financing was a bit of a challenge. Even though we have numerous relationships with NBFCs and banks, yet that process was slow. But what we're finding is, since there's a change that's happened in the policies now, the market is shifting to the city speed category. That is becoming less of a challenge. And there is more and more banks and NBFCs willing to finance this. So that's not such a big deal. Now, as an industry, there are challenges or there are issues like, batteries are still not getting manufactured in India. The cells are still not getting manufactured, but that's a matter of economics. Once we get to a certain scale, and I believe there are numerous companies who've already shown interest in the PLI, the government PLI of 18,100 crores for ACC, the Advanced Cell Chemistry Battery Manufacturing in India. And I believe that's only a matter of time, in a matter of a year or 2 years, or, thereabouts, 24 to 30 months, we will see batteries being manufactured, cells being manufactured in India. They're already being assembled here. So there are no such huge challenges which are there at this point, which would result in this industry not really taking off. These are all bridgeable challenges. Charging infrastructure, like I said, portable batteries, or you create some kind of a charging infrastructure. But that said, you can plug in your vehicles to charge from any wall outlet. Any 15 amp, just the way you charge your mobile phone and computers, etc. You can charge your electric scooters as well. So it's more of an anxiety issue rather than a on-the-ground problem. There have been not issues, but there is what is required more. Okay, let me put it that way. So there are 2-3 factors which are required. One is creation of more awareness. So when we talk about environmental concerns, when we talk about pollution, etc., air pollution is another important factor which we as a government, as people, as companies should be talking about. We should be talking about how do we bridge that air pollution. So last year we've done numerous programs. We continue to do numerous programs where we talk about solutions for air problem, because that's a huge problem, not just in urban, but even rural areas. There is a problem of air pollution in India. We are one of the most polluted cities in the world. That's one big challenge, a big gap that we have. So we have to convert to zero emission vehicles ASAP. I mean, we can't afford to wait for too much longer. The other challenge, so that is one of awareness. So people need to be aware as well. So we need to have that awareness. The second factor is that we need to set ourselves long-term goals to say by what time do we want to entirely convert to electric. And those goals should not be too far. And like I said, there could be different goals for two-wheelers, different for larger vehicles, and different for commercial vehicles, etc., etc. But they should be goals which are highly achievable. Those are goals which, once we set those goals in place, then what will happen is, in a backward calculation, infrastructure, your supply chains, your dealer networks, your financing, everything will begin to fall into place because we now have a deadline by which we have to convert. And that deadline, like I said, should not be too far. I believe, a 6-year deadline from now is actually a very, very good deadline for two-wheelers to start converting to electric.
Sure. I'm glad that you gave us so much insight on the hurdles that the electric mobility space is currently witnessing. But just to the point that Nayanthara earlier was making about how Ola is selling their bikes as hotcakes, just wanted to understand what your own internal sales targets are for the financial year and the revenue as well, the number that you're working with.
So what we've done is, we have upped our targets, what we had done earlier. So in the last number of years, we've only been increasing our targets year on year for the next following year, including this year. So what we've done is, this year we're going to be at about 100,000 odd units, but we are gearing up for 500,000 units for next year now. So that's where the capacity enhancements are happening. Our supply chains are being built up accordingly. Our dealer network is being expanded accordingly. And the marketing spends and marketing work that we're doing is again in sync with all of that. Now, what we are going to be doing is, while we build up to about 500,000 next year, we are going to add 1 million units every year, year on year for the next couple of years, because we would like to keep an eye on the market as well. How is the market really reacting to this? How quickly is the market adopting? And what price points is the market adopting? What we believe is, in a commuter segment and in an entry-level segment where a person is buying a vehicle for about 75,000 rupees, he's going to look at a price point which is very similar to the band that he's already operating in, because he doesn't necessarily have the wherewithal to really go out and buy a vehicle at a much higher or double the price than what he's doing, even though he may be saving from a total cost of ownership or over a period of time. So he looks at initial purchase price as being a very, very important factor. So there are, so we look at that kind of a price point. So what we are doing is we are pushing that city speed category product through, which is targeted at the commuter segment. So what we anticipate is that by next year, what we're projecting is by next year, it will be at about 500,000, then adding on about 1 million units thereafter year on year. And our supply chains are being geared up to handle much larger volumes. So should that market explode in a much more optimistic or a much more positive manner, then we are ready to take care of that as well. So that's how we're building up at this point.